hope that you take a little piece of me with you, from our time together. And so, you feel the importance of story, yes? Mm-hmm. So I know that this is, I don't see any notebooks, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not a PowerPoint girl, and I'm not really a handout girl either, because sometimes I go way off course, so you just have to come along for the ride. But this is a piece, I want you to actually pull out your phones, because I'm going to walk you through something. Or if you have a notebook handy in those purses of yours, you never know, you can grab one of those too. And I want you to actually do this with me. I want every single one of you to leave tonight, hopefully, with a little more clarity. So before we dive into the storytelling blueprint, as I call it, I want you to lean into, because we're talking about really alignment. And if we think about alignment in our business is an extension of us, yes? And so when we can really be so clear on who we are and who we be in the world, there is a piece of, yes, the values, absolutely. So if you just think about what are those top values, can you find those within you? Can you list them right now? What are those things that you value? Or maybe you need to sit with them a little bit, because yes, there are core values that I feel like are a part of us from the time we are we. They come in our DNA. But I also feel that there are times where something matters more to us than other times of our life, in the different seasons of our journey and the different times of our businesses. So I want you just to take a moment to think, what are my top values? And just jot a few down, or think them in your mind. But what are those core values that you have? I should have some more music. Should I sing for you? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We do the Jeopardy song.
Yeah. And then I want you to just take one of those, and I want you to think, how could I bring this even more into a tangible way into my business? How could I bring it in a tangible way into my marketing, into my offers, into how I show up in the world? So I'm going to give you just a little example. You heard that I used to host an event called Shine Live. Loved it. But one of the things that every time before I create anything, so if it's an event, if it's a program, whatever it is, I come first to this place of, which I think they kind of go hand in hand, but how do I want people to feel? So how do I want people to feel when they're in my presence? How do I want people to feel when they interact with me and my brand? Because our brand speaks for us, yes? When we're not physically in a room with someone, they can still feel your essence of who you are. And so I want you just to write down a few feeling words. How do you want people to feel when they experience you in whatever business interaction that you have with your clients? And for example, at Shine Live, I remember thinking, I really want them to feel seen. I want them to feel seen. And so a big part of what I do as a storyteller is I reflect back to you who you are at your core and everything that makes you who you are. And I connect your life experiences to your life's work. And that is my gift, to be able to see you. But there's more tangible ways also that people could experience being seen. So for example, at Shine Live, I keep coming back to that. I just keep following the flow though. At Shine Live, I was like, hey, what if I handed out little Post-it notes? And then we can use this if you want, if you host events. But little Post-it notes, and I would put it with their little binders that they got when they come in. I did have binders at that point. They come with the binders and the little goodie bags. And with those Post-it notes, I would have them throughout and invite them throughout to send love notes to each other. And so over the 3 days, I still have a book full of all these Post-it notes, and I often pull it out and look at them and remember those moments. But it's moments of gratitude, moments of a special interaction. And these women would leave with all of these love notes, right? Because they felt seen. So that's a part of it. Or courage. Courage is a value of mine and also a big part of how I want people to feel, because Sharing your story or speaking takes a little bit of courage, yes? And so having that courage, I actually love to dance too. Side note. I used to be a Zumba teacher. That was actually part of my speaking when I used to do it for schools. I'd always get everybody up dancing. But here's the piece is that people got a little freaked out, but we did a flash mob dance at every Shine Live. So I would teach them a choreography. We would practice it in the privacy of the Laurel packing house. And then I would take them out on the street and we would do a flash mob. And so this was a piece where people were like, I am going to be sick that day, or I am going to just not come back from lunch. And people were really freaked out. They're like, I can't do this. But then by the end, they were like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I did it, and that's the piece. So when you think about your brand, how do you want people to feel? And how could you tangibly, maybe you could do a flash mob dance. Maybe you can create an experience like we just saw, like an experience for people. People are craving that. So if you want connection as maybe one of your core values, then how do we create those experiences within it? How can we think about that on social media or through the ways that we show up? Yes? Are you guys getting some ideas? Okay, good. I hope so. So I want you to take one of those feeling words and I want you to tangibly say, this is one idea that I could implement. One idea that you could bring to your brand, to bring it tangible so that when people interact with you, they feel that essence. And it's okay if you're stuck. More ideas will come. We're late here, I get it. And you've had wine, so tomorrow morning you're gonna have it. Yes, absolutely.
So how do you bring one of the top values into your business?
Yes, tell me. Well, yes, values and or feeling words. Maybe they're interchangeable. Yes, love it.
And for some of us, the wine helps.
And some people, the wine absolutely helps. Yes. The creativity flows. Beautiful. All right, now for moving into the storytelling piece, because this really is, again, how we align our brand to our values is aligning it to us as a human and our journey on this beautiful planet. And so I'm going to walk you through the storytelling blueprint, and then we're going to bring up our lucky winner to show you that experience. Now, when you guys share your stories, some of the key things is to not share it from a timeline of events. So if you've experienced, sometimes someone's like, well, I was born here, then I went here, then I got married, then I did the corporate thing, right? Yes? And then we're losing it a little bit. We're not fully present. A great storyteller is someone who can actually paint the picture, who can really bring in the essence of the feeling, the emotion, can paint the picture. So just like me sitting at the back of that chapel and that young boy, and usually I go into the story of jumping out of an airplane and all that stuff, and there's a lot of things that I can share about that. But in that, it's like you're right there with me. So when you are a great storyteller, what happens? You guys all know that when you hear someone speak, you might not remember the specific things they said. You remember how they made you feel? Who says that one? Someone good says that. Maya Angelou, I think. But in this space, but you do also remember stories, because it's actually proven scientifically that the brain will actually look for an emotion, and they've done tests where they have these little cool machines on the speaker and the audience. And they're tracking where things in the brain are lighting up. And it's called mirror coupling, where we actually are firing off in this mirroring way of how someone is feeling when they actually tell that story baked in emotion. So when we can get into the details, when we can share how it looked, how it felt, had the sounds, where we were, paint the picture of that, and then also when we feel it, they will feel it. So find that moment in time where you can feel that emotion, whatever that is. Could be anger, could be sadness, could be joy, but find that emotion and embrace it. I often say too, when we tell our stories or when we are speaking, that we take people on an emotional roller coaster, not in a negative way. But we want them to feel. We want people to feel. It wakes us up. Yes? Mm-hmm. It allows us to land. It allows us to also access the moments in time where we also felt a similar way. Because we don't have the exact same stories, but we can see ourselves in each other's stories. And I really feel that through storytelling, I'm here to help unite humanity, no big deal, but through allowing ourselves to actually see each other in each other's stories and to feel seen. Yes? Okay, storytelling blueprint time. So step number 1 is give a glimpse of where you are now. So give them a glimpse of where you are now. And in this place, yes, you could say, like for me, I could say all the things that beautiful Katharina said, in the sense of, I've given these speeches and I get to travel all over the world, and it's amazing to be able to connect with people and to be able to share stories and messages and to be able to see when there's those little light bulb moments and to be able to be a part of someone's journey. So it's not just about a list of achievements. It's about what that actually means to you. So right here, right now, I have freedom to be able to travel with my kids. I have freedom to be able to work from wherever I choose. I have freedom, right? And so freedom is there. So being able to share a bit of a glimpse of where you are right now, but more from a place of the feeling, the emotion, the values that you are living. Yes? Okay, step number 2 and 3 go hand in hand. They're called the diamond moment, because you guys all know the metaphor of that. Apply pressure, something beautiful happens. That's why I'm wearing some bling bling. We got some diamond moments, all of you do. And so when you look at step number 2 is the breakdown moment. And again, we're gonna try to keep this to like a core moment in time. And you might be saying, I got so many breakdowns, I don't know how to choose which one, right? Or you might be like, I don't know what that is. But I want you just to lean into being okay with not maybe knowing exactly, but jotting down a few ideas of what were some big moments in time. And what I would say is that core breakdown moment for you is the one that is the catalyst for you moving forward on the path that you did to get where you are today. Because the universe, however you want to say that, God, spirit, universe, source, knocks us over the head. Are you listening? Are you listening? Are you listening? Hence all the breakdown moments. Until we have the big one where we're like, I get it. Okay, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to make a new choice. I'm going to do something different. And that's the diamond moment. Yes? So it's the moment that led us there. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It might be something much simpler than you thought. So it could be a moment that you're like, well, I've had these big moments, but actually this one feels really tender and beautiful. Maybe it was just a moment you were sitting alone in your apartment and you heard a song come on the radio and it shifted something in you, right? It doesn't have to be a huge event to be a catalyst event. Yes? Okay. So in that space, the step 2 is breakdown. Step 3, taking those notes, good job, girls. Step 3 is your breakthrough. Now again, you get to take a little creative license of maybe the breakthrough took a little bit of time. I'm on year 4 over here of my new story. I'm still working it. It doesn't have an ending quite yet. Our stories evolve. That's another lesson. We have new stories to tell. And maybe I'll come back another time and tell you when I have that one nailed. But here's your opportunity to take some creative license of here's the breakthrough that maybe led to an eternal breaking through. Yes. But it led you again to that place of understanding. Okay. Then step number 4 is the lessons learned. Now, when we're telling our story, this isn't the time. In your speech, say you're speaking or doing a podcast or whatever it is, that's where you can then say, well, here's the points, here's the steps. But in your story, you want to sprinkle them in. But you want to make them punchy, memorable, so that people perk up a little bit when they hear that lesson. And then they might write it down. And then they might tweet about it or put it on Instagram. So you want it to be something that feels memorable, these lessons, and you want to sprinkle them into your story. So when I continue with my story, normally I would say, so I started checking off those things one by one, yes. And one of those things was to jump out of an airplane. Not sure why I wrote that one down, but I did. You know, when you write it down, opportunities come. Dancing in a Latin dance competition was on that same list, and that's when I think it was not even a year later, that's when I got the opportunity with taking Linda's spot in Singing with the Stars. So it works. Just be careful what you put on that list. Be really sure you want that. But from that place, I remember saying, my friend said, okay, my brother owns a skydiving company. I'm like, how did I not know that before? And do you want to come with me? And I was like, yes. Every part of me wanted to say no, but I also knew, okay, you're facing your fears, you're doing things that scare you, we're gonna do this. But in that moment, I also knew that I would probably find a way to back out if I didn't make my why bigger than my fear. And so I decided to fall 10,000 feet. Crazy, I know. How many of you have done skydiving before? Okay. And I'm terrified of heights, so this is like a big deal. I decided to fall 10,000 feet to raise $10,000 for a school in Nicaragua. And I had 6 weeks before I jumped. We also then, because I'm a little bit of an overachiever at that time, I was like, and we're gonna co-author a book. And so everybody who donates to the fundraiser is gonna get a book of everybody's courageous stories. So I had 60 authors where we had an editor show up and we created this whole platform and we had this, everybody highlighted and everybody's stories written. We had this book to deliver all in 6 weeks, plus we raised the money for the school. And I had this fire in me. And now there was no turning back. I had told the world I was jumping out of that plane. But also I had that deeper why, that it was no longer just about me. It was about the impact that could come from that school and those children who needed it. And so that's the piece. Do you see what I did? Who knows my little nugget? Is make your why bigger than your fear. So when we're telling the story, maybe your minds went there because I was teaching you. But when you're telling a story, if you were just listening, which you were, you wouldn't necessarily notice that that would be one of the big points that I wanted to make. But you heard it, you felt it. It was baked into a story, so you will remember it. Okay? So that's important. Step number 5 is what I just talked about. What is your why? So really getting into this place when we tell our stories, but then why does this matter? Why have we gone through all this stuff? Why? I know that's sometimes the question. But we can find our whys that motivate us, that move us, that remind us, that help us to stand on stages even when we're doing our stuff over here feeling nervous, right? That's why I do it. I get scared every single time. But I do it because I understand my why, because I understand the power of story, because I believe in each and every one of you that are in this room. Even if we haven't quite met yet, I see you and I feel you, and you're here because you do have something to say. You do have a story to share. And so now is your time to shine. Okay, so that is it. Nope, last one. Turn it back to them. So turn it back to your audience. So after you shared your why, this is why I do what I do, and this is why I know. Well, actually, I just did that. I didn't even know I did it, but I did do it. So I just shared my why is really about you guys because I see you, right? So I didn't mean to do it, but that just came through. It is that natural progression of when we lead with our why, then we understand who we're here to serve, which naturally is, I see you. Yeah? Okay. Now you got that. Mm-hmm. Some other important pieces of this is just to allow yourself to play with it a little bit, to know that your story evolves and changes over time. To know that maybe if you have a lot of stories to share, that's okay. Let's just focus on a couple, 2 to 3 max in this brand story when you're sharing it. And we can take this story, we can extend it, and we can shorten it. So we can have an essence of a story instead of a typical elevator pitch. We can have our story in a couple of lines. We can extend it. If you have more time to share, or if you're on a shorter podcast, you can play with it. But when the essence of it, that story that I shared just a piece of, I didn't share the full story, but that story that I shared of my own journey, that happened many, many years ago. I'd say now I'm like, what year is it? Yes, about 10 years ago. And yet still, to this day, I can feel that. Some days it's more raw than others, but I feel it because I'm a mother. I feel it because I'm now her age when she passed. I can feel it because now I have experienced losing my brother. I can feel it because I have layers of grief in my life. And so again, my story, some people say that you get bored of telling the same story. Well, our story is our story. But as we add layers of depth to it, it's always really landing differently for us and those who listen. And so really, it's almost like it's a new telling of that story every single time, which is beautiful, right? And I think that there is a deep honoring of ourselves. When do we actually stop and look back at our lives and think, holy cow, I made it through all that, right? Or wow, look at how strong I was. How many times do we stop and actually honor and celebrate ourselves for the journey that we have walked? Not very often, am I right? But this is an opportunity to do that. And so how are you all feeling? Are you having some clarity on that brand story? You might need to mull it over a little bit, but feeling into that energy of this matters. And there is something beautiful here for me to share. Beautiful. How are we doing?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. We might even have time for another session. I had to test getting up on these chairs because I'm wearing an unusually, to me, short skirt. I was like, oh, jeepers. Am I gonna like, everybody close your eyes. Okay, but we are going to invite our lovely guests up to the stage, up to the front of the room. Okay, nobody look, no. I was like, how do I cross my legs with these boots? Hello. And what is your name again? Now I feel like we've met somewhere. Where was it though? Must have been somewhere, okay. I recognize you, so it's good. But I'm also like, I don't really know you too well. So what I do here is I started at Shine Live. I was like, I would do a story session. It would take me about an hour and a half to like hear a person's life story, right? And like pull it all together for them and tell it back to them. And so at one of my first events, I was like, I wonder if I could do this. It was scary because I didn't know who I was picking. I didn't know their business or their story. And so I'm like, I'm taking a chance. And I also was like, can I do this in a short amount of time? I don't know. Now I've gotten it to a place where I've actually done some in 7 minutes. Wow. Yes, you tell me your life story in 2, I tell it back to you in 5. No big deal, but we've got a little bit more time than that. Those were a little rushed. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my glasses on. Like I didn't want them on the whole time. Now I can see when I write. So I'm gonna ask some questions and then I'm gonna give you the mic. We're gonna just kind of go back and forth. If you guys want to also you can just pay attention and listen. If you want to take notes on some of the questions that I ask, it might help you reflect on your own story. I would also love you to just kind of sit and take it in when I tell it back to her, of course, just be in the moment. But you might start to notice, oh, there's a lesson. Oh, there's a why. Oh, she's turning it back to the audience. So I'm gonna hear your story. For time, I know that there's probably a lot more that you could share, but I want you to think Cliff Notes versions. If I need more, then I'll ask more. And we'll just go from there. So first question. I think we can do this. Okay. First question. You guys can hear me. I am loud. Okay. First question is, what do you do for your work, for your life's work in the world?
Yeah, so I'm the executive director of Hope Outreach, helping out people exploited. We're a nonprofit.
That's where I know you.
We're a nonprofit that does nighttime outreach on the streets of Kelowna, focusing with potentially marginalized women.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. So tell me then, let's just go into the moments. Actually, let's go into a little bit of the why, but you might need to go into your story. You might start just naturally going into a story to tell your why, but if you could just think of a why beyond the story, like why does this matter? And then we'll get into the story, breakdown, breakthrough for you personally. Yes.
Sure. It
I don't
matters.
know why this matters, but I just
Yeah.
need to hear it from her voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
It matters because so many women like yourselves helped me along my journey. I've got many stories. We'll just stick to one for tonight. But yes, I think because I was inspired with those who helped me along my journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna go into then the diamond moment, but you can share. What I would love is I actually, you know how I said not to do a timeline when you tell your story, but I would love to have you actually kind of do a little bit of a timeline, like give me a little bit of childhood and a little bit of maybe a couple moments leading up to maybe what is your biggest moment. Yes, just so I have a little more backstory.
Okay, raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, German immigrant parents, middle class to lower class. My parents really worked hard to put a roof over our head and food on the table. Went through university, had some grief in my life that kind of aligned some bad stars. Took a little, maybe a big left turn in life when I was 28 and picked up cocaine, which took me down a journey of a 13-year addiction and ended up in homelessness, sex work on the streets. And 21 years ago almost, I had a little redemption and just a second chance at life, and just really knew that that was a purpose of the pain that I'd maybe endured, and how was I going to turn that around and make it something valuable.
And then you did.
And
then tell a little bit more of now the journey of where did that seed come from of what you do now?
Right, so I started the recovery journey, and again, really inspired by other ladies that shared their story, not necessarily the same story. 21 years ago, it was very hidden, still is a little bit. It's funny that we do this because when I came into recovery, many people said, oh God, don't share your story. People will judge you, they will look at you. I had a very strong, assertive German mother that didn't really care what people thought of her. She went on this mission of advocacy and helping those less fortunate. And I drew a lot of that in. So, I knew, I guess spiritually, that I was chosen somehow to do this, somehow to make that. And the journey is the journey. I never knew that when I was in the beginning of it. I thought, oh my God, what is this all about? So I just started on that journey of just where can I help, who helped me, and how can I make this an inspiration or a blessing instead of a curse. So started the recovery journey, sat on some boards, really got involved on the other side of things of, educated myself on why people through mental health or sexual abuse or whatever those reasons are, that makes people take a left turn and whatever, you can relate to any journey of pain. And just started that healing within myself, looking for those inspirations and people with the wisdom to really guide me, to support me, to love me. It wasn't really to educate me, but just who was going to be unjudgmental to walk that journey, whether they knew what that journey was about or not. You're writing a lot.
Okay, how does that feel?
Okay.
Is there more you want to share about the left turn moment? Or no? It doesn't need to be.
Yeah, no, just like Alice in Wonderland, you just fell down the rabbit hole. Met the Mad Hatter a few times, and yeah, there's a lot of stories in that. That could be a book all in itself.
It should be. Okay, beautiful. So what I'm gonna do now, does that feel like, I mean, we would probably dive a lot deeper if we had more time, but we're gonna do our best with this beautiful woman here and her story. So what I do right now is I just will take a couple minutes, and I'm just gonna be quiet, but I would love for if someone can record, maybe just audio, voice memo, this one for her. Does anybody want to record that for you?
I can do it.
Okay, perfect. Just so you have it. I'm into this world, I feel, with a purpose. We can often see our gifts sometimes as our greatest curse. But the journey makes us who we are. But it doesn't have to define us. I am grateful for the strong parents that I had who raised me to know that I was able to do whatever I put my mind to. They were immigrants, and they forged their way. They worked hard to put a roof over my head. And I know that my mother, she taught me to serve. She taught me what it meant to be able to see others without judgment, but also because she knew who she was, and she didn't really care what anybody else thought. That is a beautiful lesson that I learned from my mother, that took me through a journey, and that was there in moments where I was standing in front of a mirror, looking at the shell of who I had become, where in life I took a left turn. I found myself in a place dealing with addiction, finding myself in a body, in a space that I didn't recognize, looking at a reflection that was me, but it also was not. Because I believe that there are many things that people navigate in life, whether that is mental health issues, whether that is abuse, whether that is addictions. And I believe that each of us has a story, a moment in time where we might find ourselves taking a left turn as well. And that one choice led me down a path to another and another and another. And there are moments where I regretted that moment in time, where I wish I could have gone back, where I wished that that did not happen. I remember asking why, as I stared at myself, a shell of myself. But now I know. Now I know that that journey led me to my divine purpose, what I was born to this world to do, that there are no mistakes, and that in this place that there was a moment where I needed to see myself, where I had people who saw beyond the addiction, who saw beyond the sex trafficking, who saw beyond the homelessness, and saw to the core of who I was, and who loved me regardless of my addictions, regardless of what others in society might have deemed me as unworthy. They saw and believed in me. They had compassion for my journey. Perhaps it was because they had walked a journey similar or parallel, or maybe different altogether. But again, our stories mirror one another's, where we can see that each of us is not exempt from pain or struggle or circumstances that are outside of our control, but each and every one of us has an opportunity to journey through pain and find and look for the inspiration outside of ourselves until we can find the power and truth within ourselves to look at ourselves in the mirror, no matter where we have journeyed, and to come back home. Before that left turn, before I lost myself, I found myself again. But it isn't without the help of angels who saw me, who believed in me, who inspired me. This is the journey now for me to help others in their recovery journey, to see them when the world does not. They are like as if they are invisible to many, but I was not invisible. I was a girl who had lost her way. And this is a call for all of us to stop for a moment and to really see those who stand or sit or kneel or ask for help right in front of us. And maybe get curious for a moment of what that journey might be for them. Because we all have journeyed in pain, but they have an opportunity, if only there's someone who can believe in them, see them for who they are, beyond their addiction, beyond their circumstance, beyond this moment in time, and love them without judgment. Because that is what we all truly want anyways, isn't it?
Wow.